Hello, everybody. Okay, today is kind of a different type of episode, but I think it'll be pretty helpful. It was brought up in the membership. The membership calls on Monday morning, I feel like, are equal part mental work, therapy, and marketing planning because this job is and can be, and maybe for some people isn't, but can be pretty emotional. And so this member had said, like, I'm struggling to rebound after an unhappy client. And if you have ever had an unhappy client, you know that it becomes like an all-encompassing vortex of everything you do, right? Because of course we all only want happy clients, just as any person who provides a service for someone does. But how do you bounce back when it doesn't go that way? In a transparent way, I have probably one unhappy client every 2 years-ish has been, if I look back, that's approximately, and there may be people who get their galleries back and they're like, ew, and they never reach out to me, so I don't know. But I'm talking about people that reach out and say, like, I'm unhappy, right? And both of the times that this has happened that are like the most recent that I can recall, both of the times, it was a feeling I had at the end of the session where I was like, oh, okay, this might not, like there was an issue going on where I was like, this might result in this person being unhappy. And both of those things I feel like were partially out of my control. It was just the situation of the family, right? And I said this in the call, and someone said that this was really helpful perspective, so I'm going to share it with all of you. So family photography is a mirror, oftentimes, for families. And, we have sessions where parents are stressed, kiddos are misbehaving, kiddos aren't participating, there's tension between mom and dad, there's issues with appearance, like people may, and I do this, like anytime I get a gallery back, the first thing I do, it's really lovely. My brain is like, what we should do right now is just look at how stupid and fat you look in every photo. Like that's what my brain decides would be a good activity. So I know that like my initial reaction to the pictures is false and is literally the patriarchy telling me that I'm not looking the way I should. It's a comparison to some other thing that doesn't even exist because, of course, the way I look is the way I look. The way I sound is the way I sound. The amount of chins I own are the chins I possess. All the things that we can overly think about, right, when we get a gallery back. There's that going on. I remember I had a session one time where my youngest, it was totally my fault. I was so stressed out getting the outfits, doing all stuff. I forgot to feed the child. And for my kids, when they're hungry, like good luck, unless you're like the most entertaining person or the most playful person, which in this particular environment, the photographer we had was not very playful, and was like asking for them to do things. It was more like a posed situation, if you can picture. Oh my gosh, absolutely not. When I got the gallery back, I, as the mom, saw the mirror of my reflection of my own parenting and forgetting to feed my kid in her frown, right? That has nothing to do with the photographer, but it would be easy for me to be like, hey, we didn't get any smiles. You know what I mean? And a good photographer would be like, I'm so sorry that happened, and they would have to internally battle, like, how do I meet this person in the middle, or just let them know that it's written in my contract that I'm not responsible for, like, your kid smiling or whatever, right? There's a bunch of different elements within this unhappy client experience. But when it happens to you, it can throw you so far off track, and your confidence can take a major nosedive. So in recent memory, the time I'm remembering was the most emotional for me. I felt that the person was actually so mad about the gallery that they became cruel to me personally. And it was like shattering, like the cruelty that I felt coming off of this person. And like there was nothing I did that warranted cruelty. And so that's how I knew it wasn't about me, right? It was about something reflected in their gallery and our experience. And I felt the tension when I was there. I'm a very perceptive person. I tried to shoot through it. I tried to make the best of it. The camera, the images become the mirror. It's captured, it's truth, it's in your face as the person receiving the gallery, right? So there's some things that aren't true, like you look bad, probably not. Probably you only look at the mirror facing a particular way, and every time you face in the mirror, you do these micro fixes of little things you don't like about yourself. And then when you get the gallery back and you're running around and you're playful and you're shooting from the side and shooting from behind, where you're like, excuse me, who owns that back? It's you. You just never see it. That's separate than the emotion of this felt like an expose of an underlying issue within my family dynamic, right? So the first thing is identifying, like, what is it, right? And you will not be able to do that identifying in the first even couple hours, because you may need to go into your woods and scream, or you might need to cry, or you might need to roll up in a ball and watch a sad movie and feel extremely sorry for yourself. I've not done any of those things. Weird. You might need to do those things, right? It's personal. The work is emotional. It's not just a service. You're not cleaning someone's house. No shade on anyone who cleans anyone's house. That's like more of a black and white. And even cleaners, like our Airbnb cleaners are amazing. And the stories that they tell about the emotion and the mirrors that are even within cleaning houses, this can happen, right? You can get rolled up in someone's emotional reaction to the work that you provided for them, no matter what you're doing. But let's say it's like wiping down a surface, right? We can objectively say, is it clean or is it not clean? Providing an artistic service to someone is not black and white. So they're purchasing from you memories that are being made. And so on both sides, I try to remember on both sides, there's a deep cut. Because I'm assuming the best of all of you, if you showed up and you were just a jerk and you were drunk and you were hostile, this is not the conversation for you. If you showed up as your best self, you did everything you normally do, and it just wasn't rolling forward and things weren't happening and people were upset or people were fighting or people were having tension, there's the people who are in tension, the people who are not getting what they wanted, even if it has nothing to do with you, deep cuts on both sides, right? So part of it is for giving yourself space to do your scream, cry, curl up in a ball, feel bad for myself, want to throw my camera at the wall, say, I'm getting a 9 to 5, I'm done with this, I'm going back to school. Let yourself go through the full range of that before you even think about responding, before you even are trying to put responses back in your head. For me, if you have someone to bounce something off of, you have to find the right person. The wrong person for me to bounce things off of, my husband. He is so protective over me, and he will literally just be like, well, you need to like send them an extra bill on top of the other bill because of emotional abuse. Like, he cannot be the one, right? He's too emotionally protective of me, right? Him seeing me upset, that's like the worst possible thing. So the person that I rely on in this situation is my mom. And you guys may know from listening, we run an Airbnb together. Every once in a while, even though she especially puts so much effort into the Airbnb being a magical experience, every once in a while we get someone unhappy. I have to tell her, do not respond until you talk to me. Just don't. You want to say something immediately, and it's always emotional. So we're kind of that person for each other. it's really helpful to find someone like that. Another photographer can also help. I remember working through my latest unhappy client experience with a friend of mine who's in the industry, and I was like, what the frick? Am I off base? Here's the one where I was the most confused by it, the one that where it really threw me a bit, because I thought I did the very best I could with the gallery given what was going on. I sent the full gallery and I was like, what's the deal? Tell me honestly. And they were like, well, you can see this person's face looks this way and it's clear that there's tension. It's not your fault, but that's what they're seeing. So I'm like, okay, so that's this taking a step back, breathing, and then if you need to, getting a second opinion on it, because it can be a disaster emotionally if you're not supported. So before this happens, if it's never happened to you, think in your head, who would be your support team? And you may be like, this is ridiculous. If you don't react this way to someone being unhappy, if you're just like, whatever, bye, that's totally fine. I feel like there's a lot of people who it is very emotionally debilitating to, and that's who I'm speaking to. And the reason that this topic is showing up on this marketing podcast is because of that debilitation can silence you, and you have to draw yourself back up out of the cliff. So one of the things that my mom and I learned from the Airbnb that was most helpful, because we actually had to research a few times, like what is the proper way to respond? This is an Airbnb that we've had open for 5 years, and we have almost 250 reviews or something. So you can think about sifting through that. There's going to be feedback and different things that come through. So the first thing to do, and I'm just giving a little walkthrough from my own experience, when you do find yourself grounded enough to write back or communicate back to this person, if you can diffuse a situation so quickly if you acknowledge their feelings. You don't have to take blame for things that are beyond your control, but if you can just acknowledge how they feel. Sorry, I had to move I fractured my tailbone when I gave birth to Bryn, who is now 14 years old, and tailbones don't actually really heal because you can't put your butt in a cast. And so I do this podcast on my closet floor, and every once in a while I can't sit anymore. So I had to move around. Okay, so you can acknowledge your feelings. I'm so sorry that you feel this way, right? You can say that. Some people will say that if you are asking for an apology from someone and they truly hurt your feelings and they're like, I'm sorry you feel that way, then you can be like, oh, well, they're not taking responsibility for what they did to make me feel that way. So these are all nuanced responses, right? If you were causing mayhem and you were a ball of rage at your own session, obviously you need to take accountability for how you made people feel. But if this is, again, framing this in, you showed up as your best self, right? Come up with, before you write the email, and hopefully with your idea person, what are some solutions that you feel okay with? So sometimes what happens is people will say freak out about the criticism, quote unquote, and just offer a full refund without realizing that maybe that's not what the client is asking for. So figure out what your clear solution is before you write this email. And it doesn't have to be that because someone is unhappy that you have to give them all their money back. In both of my instances that are in most recent memory, I was honestly completely shocked that these clients requested money back, which they both did. It blew my mind because of the effort, energy, time, everything that I put in to making the session work, and it just didn't work. And then it blew my mind that the solution was for me to forfeit my income after I had completed the job, right? So I have to come to terms with what I'm okay with doing and not okay with doing. And if that solution that the client wants, you're not okay with and you don't feel is fundamentally fair, you have to be okay with them continuing to be unhappy. And if you can't hold on to that, if that will eat you alive because you didn't end it the way that you really wanted to, or they're still unhappy and there's an unhappy soul floating in the world who doesn't like you, you're going to need to decide about that, how it's going to debilitate you or if you can recover, right? So if you're a person who cannot handle someone being unhappy out there and you just want to make it as right as rain and bend over backwards, and then I totally, and this is going to go against what a lot of people will say, I understand that, because the emotional aspect of this job and the fact that not everybody is okay and can just have unhappy people floating, that could be something that could just eventually drive people crazy. So figure out what it is that you feel is fair. And then here's the most important thing. Keep your communication short, kind, and professional. Like in both instances, the level of defense that I wanted to bring to the table, I did not allow myself as much as I wanted, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. In many of these instances, the client's mind is already made up. They've already decided what they want out of it. So it's how do you get to that point of figuring out what the thing is without you bearing your entire soul, because that's just emotional regurgitation that's probably going to be ignored and make the situation worse. Okay, so let's say that you delivered the gallery, the client wrote back whatever, they don't like it, they're not happy, you scream, cry, roll down the hill into a pond, swim around, smash your camera, hopefully not, punch a tree, scream at the sky, and then you sit down to respond. You guys figure it out. You come to a middle ground. You're probably never going to feel good about it because they're unhappy. So you have to be okay with that, but you figure out what middle ground works for both of you to move on. So how do you reframe it? How do you learn from it? How do you grow? So the thing about unhappy clients is, for the most part, the unhappy clients that I have had was really, I feel like, not quite the right fit for my brand at the end of the day. And in both cases, I feel like the client wanted me to be more posed, more controlled, more directive. I feel like that would be like the through line for these people. And that's just not me. Like, I am just let's go play and run around, and like a recipe that has to work really for my sessions is closeness and snuggliness and being together. And if families are not wanting to do that with my brand, it's really hard because it's based so much on play and fun. And if people are unable to have play and fun, then on my end, my side of the camera, things break down a little bit. And there's things that happen, and not everybody can show up to a session acting like that. But I am trying my best to market my brand in a way that my brand is for snuggly, adventurous, playful families. So if someone doesn't fit in those categories, and that can be any person, right? You can be any person. It doesn't matter what. If you don't fit in those 3 words, the way I photograph you is going to feel a little more clunky. And I will obviously alter things for different types, personality types and whatever, but that's just a through line, right? So part of it is these individuals slipped through my marketing and thought my brand was something in a way that it wasn't, right? So I'm not really, I feel like there are very professional posed photographers who it's easier for them to work through families who are not as connected in that moment because they can pose through it. And that's not me. So I know I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job, but I can say I need to be even more clear about that, right? I can take on the communication failure. So every negative experience, you should, once you've recovered emotionally to function, you see how that experience can sharpen your system. And if for some reason anyone, either of the families who I'm talking about, is listening to the podcast and thinking like that's not at all how it felt, exactly. It's going to feel different to each person who's on the other end of either side, right? They're going to have their experience. I'm going to have my experience. I can't be in the client's shoes, so I can't, and there's no point in knowing. I can only know what I know as a photographer who's photographed 1,400 families. what fits in the norm and what doesn't, right? And then I can say, okay, how could I have made this more clear that I maybe wasn't the right photographer for them, or whatever it was, or how could I have prepared them better? That's the thing. So even in these experiences, the unhappy client is also a mirror going back to your business and how you conduct it and how you can make things happier. So you can say, an unhappy client freaking sucks, and it's also an opportunity to teach me how to prevent having another unhappy client. After this latest unhappy client, there was 3 things I changed in my business. I'm not going to say exactly what they were because I don't want to expose this person, but I changed them within my own system and how I perceived what had happened between me and the family, right? So it would be silly for me to say I'm there, that was just a complete anomaly and I had nothing to do with it. You do have something to do with it, and that's okay. That's okay. You're not wrong. You didn't do anything necessarily wrong, but it is a chance to say, what could I have done better? The key is to come out of it with your confidence protected, and that is the hardest part, because you're going to feel like the next session I had after that one, I was so unsteady because I was second guessing things about myself. So I had to remember who I was. I had to become Simba. I had to remember who I was, right? Who am I? What artist am I? What kind of photographer am I? How do I treat people? How do I prepare people? How much do I care? The answer to all those questions is clear. I care a lot. I try to prepare people as best I can. I take care of people's emotions as best I can. That's who I am. And I have to look at all the data on the positive end. So that's why it's good to have a kind words folder that you keep on your desktop, maybe, where you have every good response to a gallery, everything nice that clients ever said. So you can check into that little folder and remember. And when this happens with our Airbnb, I'm just like, Mom, all you have to do is go through and read the 200 plus 5-star glowing reviews and immerse yourself in those words to rebuild your confidence. You can look back at some of your favorite sessions and just remind yourself about why you love the work that you do. Lean into community. Having another photographer friend who you can be like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so defeated because of this. And them having that level of understanding is so much more helpful for me than trying to talk to my husband about it, because he's just going to side with me 1000% of the time. And he's never been through that. He doesn't have any experience providing an art for someone and then having them be unhappy. So how do you turn pain into marketing power? That's how it's all going to tie back into this podcast. Showing and sharing stories, obviously with some discretion, that humanize you can really help. Because I think on the unhappy client side, the photographer gets kind of lost in the mix. It's just the results. And that's the entire story, right? So opening up more with who you are and how you run your business not only can help you remember that you're a person, but it can also remind potential clients that you're a person and let them have insight into who you are, and they can decide before the session whether or not the elements of your personality, how you care, how you run sessions, what matters to you as an artist are for you or not for you. So you could create a blog post or a reel, the 3 things I always do to help people feel comfortable, inspired by these mistakes, quote unquote, that have happened in the past. What was it? How are you going to prevent it from happening again? Or what do you need to make clear about your process that someone who fits into the category of becoming unhappy again is going to fall into this? How can you say like to them specifically, I'm not the one? When I first transitioned from posed work to lifestyle, I had a lot of unhappy people in there who were like, I'd get these emails back where like, do you have any more of all of us looking? Do you have any more of a better smile for so-and-so? And it was very draining because I was in a transitional period, but I didn't hold it against my clients because I was in a transitional period. And oftentimes those people had booked me while I had posted and showed a lot of posed work, but I was shooting in a more lifestyle way. So which took about a year to filter through all of those people, and then the only people were now seeing my lifestyle work, those emails stopped coming. So how can you transform negative experiences into content that builds trust and positions you as resilient, an empathetic person, a professional person, an expert of your own creation, right? We can learn and be better, even if it's a micro criticism. Like I didn't understand, like this is one that someone had, a friend of mine. So this is like a common marketing mistake I see that leads to unhappy clients. I've talked about this before, showcasing only golden hour and then forcing clients to take cloudy day sessions. That is something that you need to explain if you are going to do. It's not fair to have a storefront full of really cute shoes and then have sort of a shoe with a muddy bottom that someone has to buy if they happen to show up at your store on one particular day. So if you shoot and show all golden hour, but you do not reschedule to get golden hour for every client, you need to be explaining that, or you need to show a lot more cloudy work in your portfolio. So that's an example. If you have 3 people this year who've said, I love our gallery, I wish it was golden hour like your portfolio, that's a key indicator that you're not being a good communicator in your marketing. So in closing, 1 unhappy client, 2 unhappy clients. If you have a lot of unhappy clients, that you may need to, take a step back. It should be a fairly rare occurrence. Although it can be quite devastating, it should be rare. It does not erase the years of happy clients and the numbers of happy clients. And it's easier said than done, right? Someone could be like, Fiona, you're amazing. You're nice. You're cool. You're fun. You're whatever. And then one person's like, your voice is annoying. And I'd be like, oh my God, that is the human brain, right? And we can't get away from it. And everything that anyone had said before that, the person who's like, now I don't care because my voice is just my voice. And I've gotten to the place of confidence with my podcast where I'm just like, yeah, I hear my voice a lot. It's fine. It's a normal voice. So it wouldn't really affect me. But, it can't. So this is something that I heard that was really interesting that I'll just share with you too, about whether or not these critiques are true. So I heard this little, I don't even know, it was like a snippet or something, a quote from somebody, and they'd use it on a sound of social media and they were playing over it. So it was like a group of people, and this person was like, what would you say if, and this is like a brown-haired man sitting in the crowd, and he was like, what would you say if I came up to you and I was like, your blue hair is stupid? And the guy was like, well, nothing, because I don't have blue hair. And he's like, exactly. If you don't believe the thing that someone is saying, then it doesn't have any weight to you. So part of it is really defining and believing in who you are when you're doing this work. Because if someone comes to me and they said, Fiona, you didn't put any effort into our family session, I'm so confident that that is not true, because every time I bring my best, silliest self, no matter what is going on in my world. So it doesn't land on me. It doesn't stick to me, right? I just can brush it off and know that it's just a random comment and untrue. If I don't know what else I could have brought to your session, right? And there'll be artistic things where I sit in the car and I say like, oh, I wish I would have tried this, or I wish I would have tried that. But I wasn't not trying anything, right? So part of it is deciding to like yourself and your work can make these comments sting way less. So your business is not defined by this one experience. And I know that when you're in the thick of it, it is all defining and it is all consuming, but you are defined by your body of work, your connection, the service that you consistently offer, the trust you build, the friendships you make. That's what really matters. So don't shy away from criticism if you get it, or feedback. Just lean, once you get through the emotional turmoil, lean on it in ways to make you better. And if you really want to get more clear, turn it into content. You could even have a very brave blog post that said, what I learned from an unhappy client. And that whole blog post, could you be lining out exactly where your communication went wrong and this person slipped through the cracks, and what type of client isn't going to be an unhappy client. This would be, this person was expecting everyone at the session to be extremely serious and smiling at the camera. And unfortunately, you showed up with Fiona the goofball who just wants to run around and play games and make people laugh. So that would be like the ultimate place of seeing how feedback can turn into marketing power. So if you've been in this place, I want you to know you're not alone. It's really hard. But at the end of the day, you're still out here trying and being a creative business owner. And that's amazing. And you should be so proud. Oh, and then inside the community, I want to share this too. Inside the membership, I'm teaching a class pretty soon, I think it was in the next 2 weeks, on using ManyChat. And I think it's going to be really powerful for people to start utilizing tools like this. Even if you feel resistant to them, I want you guys to understand how they work and how they can help you grow an email list, for example, or connect people directly with a booking link to specific sessions, because it's to the point now where the public is very well versed in these tools. And I feel like using them with more discernment than have been used in the past. Like I feel like for a while, people are using it for every single post and there was a little bit of fatigue there. I feel like now that people understand it, if it's used really well, it can be a tool that family photographers can use for lead generation that other types of photographers are already using. And I don't want us as a cohort to be left behind. So if you're interested in that, join the membership. It's literally $35 a month. You get to chat with me every single Monday morning, and you can ask any marketing questions you have. So it's like a steal, man. All right, have a good week.